What's going on, guys? This is the Club with the Band 1993 coming at you for another live stream. Doing something that I don't do as often as I hope to, but I'm going to do it now just to get out of the way there. But I hope to keep doing more videos about Major League Baseball in the future, not just of course my video games, but as well as my predictions and stuff, talk videos throughout the season as well. Don't think it's around to do as many of these, but I'm hoping to eventually add more depth on them to my channel someday. But I'm going to do a video again as I did last year at the end of the regular season. Kind of, I'm not going to do the awards though in this video. I'm just going to do just wrapping up the standings and just where I predict for the playoffs, pretty much. The awards and such, that will come after the playoffs and before the awards are announced for MVP, Cy Young, and Rookie of the Year and such. So we'll get to that now, and then we'll do all that stuff in about a month. So getting into the overall portion of the 2017 regular season, again, it was a little tougher for me to follow along this year because I didn't watch many baseball games because, as a Pirate fan, I was drained out and just I had enough of them because I wasn't happy with them. And if I can say, as a Pirate fan from Pittsburgh, I felt that the Pirates had a similar season to last year. Well, I would say somewhat a little bit better in terms of the fact that it was like they got off to a really hot start at one point, and then they just dipped the rest of the year. It was like the same thing all year. They're just a very inconsistent team. And that's what happened. I mean, they showed some sparks here and there of winning. They were in a weird position at the trade deadline. It looked like they still had a shot, but then they didn't do anything, which I felt the best move for them was to stay put. They did acquire Joaquin Benoit, and they got rid of Tony Watson, so they kind of did like an even thing there, but it didn't really turn out for them well. They did go on a little bit of a losing streak. They finished pretty strong, though. So I won't completely crap on the Pirates in this video. I'm disappointed in them, but, nothing really new on their part. Let's see what happens after Andrew McCutchen and Garrett Cole. So I think one of them are going to be gone, especially since Kutch had a better year. Not as good of a year as I had hoped he'd have, but he still had a better year. 28 homers, 88 RBIs. Was hoping for a little bit of a higher batting average, though. He did end up hitting a 279, I believe, after hitting 256 in 2016. So some pluses as a Pirate fan, but still wasn't really the best year for them, you can say, by far. But I'm not going to rant about the Pirates. Let's get into the standings here. I'll go through what I did at the preseason, at midseason, at the end of the season. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the live chat or in the comments after this video is posted. For the American League East, at the beginning of the year, I predicted it would be the Red Sox, Blue Jays with one of the wild cards, Yankees, Orioles, and Rays. Mid-season, I predicted it would end up being the Red Sox, Yankees, win the wild card, Rays, Blue Jays, and Orioles. And it ended up being just that. The Red Sox win a division, which I was predicting the whole way through. The Yankees win the wild card, which I didn't predict at the beginning of the year, but I predicted in the middle of the year. The Rays placing third after a near 500 season, 80 and 82, and the Blue Jays and Orioles finished about, in the 76-75 win range. So, I mean, overall, the American League East, pretty much how it always has been. The Red Sox got and the Yankees, we've reached a 90 win point. The Red Sox, I was questioning how they would play this year. I still thought they would be the team to beat in this division. Getting Chris Sale was a great move for their pitching staff, especially since David Price, I think, was injured. But they still had solid pitching in their repertoire. The Yankees as well, their young talent really blossomed out this year. The surprise of Aaron Judge, who rumors at the beginning of the year was supposed to be going down at the start of the season at AAA. I would have been surprised if he would have done that because after the year he broke the rookie record with 52 home runs. I think he's going to be a strong MVP case. I'm not sure he's going to win the MVP award, but we'll get to that at the end of the season wrap-up video that I will mention. Who else do we got here? Again, the Rays, had some solid performances. Again, there's a team that always seemed to have the young players being put together, still rebuilding, but wasn't quite good enough to outdo the Yankees and Red Sox in this division. The Blue Jays got off to a slow start, was one of the worst teams in the league for a while. Kind of picked it up, but it was too late for them. And, their pitching wasn't where it was. They had some good years from, Jose Bautista didn't really have a great year, but Justin Smoke had a breakout year, I'd say. Kendrys Morales did all right. That's definitely a hitter, but other than that, there really wasn't too much more to write home about. For the Blue Jays, Marco Stroman, had a good year. Steve Pearce, I know, brought on some fire as well for the Blue Jays. but it wasn't enough for the Blue Jays to fully recover from their terrible start. And then there's the Orioles, who, just didn't have it as strong this year. I mean, they weren't a weak team, but they just weren't as good as, they were a couple of years ago, since, they're in one of the toughest divisions probably in the league, as it always has been since I've been watching. The pitching wasn't as strong. Mark Trumbo didn't blast 47 homers. He only hit like 20-some homers this year. Jonathan Scope, though, proved his power. Adam Jones had an all right year. Manny Machado got up in the 30s for power for homers, but he didn't have a good start as far as batting average. Anybody else for the Orioles that I'm missing out on? But yeah, they should have as good of a year, but not a bad year for the Orioles. I mean, of course, losing record, but I could say it's like a reasonable spot for the last place team in the top division. So overall, the American League East was good to watch. The American League Central, wow, this division got really shaken up a little bit. At the beginning of the year, I thought it was going to be the Indians winning the division, with the Tigers placing second, Royals placing third, Twins fourth, and the White Sox fifth. At the All-Star break, we had the Indians in first place. Although they weren't as strong of a team back then, the Royals slipping in there, win a wild card because they were picking up some momentum by then, placing second. The Twins placing third, Tigers fourth, White Sox fifth. And ways that ended up, the Indians, who went on a hot streak, they won 22 games in a row. Nice job, Cleveland. And they won, I think, almost all except for 2 of their last 3 games, I'd say. And they were one of 3 teams, I believe, that finished with 100 wins. I think they were 102-60. Astros were 101-61. And then the Dodgers were 104-58. So that was cool to see as well. We got a lot of power as well. Edwin Encarnacion got off a little bit of a slow start, but then he picked it up and finished with 38 home runs for the Indians. Jose Ramirez put together a win for being, just like a solid, they're hitting third baseman to one of the better hitting third basemen in the league. I think he got 29 homers. Average was high. I think Jose Ramirez and Francisco Lindor, Lindor had like 33 homers, like 70 or 80 some RBIs. Not bad for second base. He hit about 280, but I think the MVP race is going to come down to either Lindor, Jose Ramirez, Aaron Judge, or Jose Altuve. Because I was thinking also George Springer could be in there, but Springer did suffer some injuries in the second half that kind of slowed him down a little bit. He still had a solid season, but the injury, a small injury, definitely slowed him down a little bit. But I think it'll probably, if better case, I'd probably say Jose Ramirez have a better case for winning the MVP award from the Indians. Aaron Judge is still a strong possibility as well, but we'll see. But the Indians, the pitching was still solid as it was last year. The hitting was great with Carlos Santana. We were talking about Lindor and Ramirez, Yan Gomes, Andrew Miller in the bullpen also. Just, another great season by a team who has a very experienced manager, and I'll talk about them in the postseason when we get to there. The Twins winning the wild card, I was surprised there. This is the team that lost 103 games last year, won 59-103, and turned around and finished 85-77, I believe. Great year from them. Their pitching was led by Irvin Santana, who had a really solid year, whose ERA like 320 something. He's going to be starting the All-Star game. I mean the wild card game, whichever one's first this week. We then have also he has our pitching statistics good from Bartolo Colon, who was a later in the year acquisition after he got off to a slow start with the Braves. He came over to the Twins and saw it there. This could be it for him, though. Too bad it might be it for Big Sexy, but they had some a lot of the young hitters just developed. Joe Mauer had a little bit of a bounce back year after hitting in the 260s for the past couple years. He finally hit over 300 again. I still don't know if him moving to first base that was going to be enough to put him in the Hall of Fame. But he's still one of the better hitters we've seen over the past 10 years, I'd say. Eddie Rosario, I believe his name is. He had a good year with the power numbers. Byron Buxton had a great year. Brian Dozier, Max Kepler. This team had a lot of great young talent just blossom out, and that's what led to their success this year, becoming a lot better team than they were with the 103 losses from last year. So they're one of the biggest surprises I'd say we got this year. The Royals, like I'm saying, this is like a hit or miss year for them because they didn't trade any of their star players, even though most of them are. It's like 4 of them, I think it is. I think Moustakas, Hosmer, Lorenzo Cain, maybe Alcides Escobar or Alex Gordon, I'm not sure, are due to be free agents after this season. So we'll see what goes on there. But they had a strong run from Hosmer, Moustakas. Gordon was great in the outfield, wasn't really that great hitting, but they came just a little bit short. They finished around 500. Strong showing by them, but didn't quite make it. And this could be a make it or break situation, seeing if, as most of their key players are going to be free agents, we'll see what happens there. The White Sox finished at 67 and 95, but they had some young talent that came up, showing that there's some sparks, to come for the White Sox. They have Rick Renteria, who I thought the only year he was the Cubs manager, despite the Cubs winning 73 games, was showing that the Cubs were on their way up. I thought he's a good addition to their ball club. I think the White Sox will eventually get to their winning ways under Renteria. And then one of the most disappointing teams this year was the Tigers. The Tigers, and they had a lot of younger guys and inexperienced players on their team, some injuries, and some players not producing. They had J.D. Martinez at the beginning of the year injured, and he went to the Diamondbacks, and we'll talk about him when we get to the Diamondbacks. Miguel Cabrera didn't really have that strong of a season. Ian Kinsler, Jose Iglesias were meh. Justin Verlander wasn't pitching at his best before being traded off to the Astros. So, they had some injuries they had to deal with this year, and caused them to tie for the worst record in the league at 64 and 98. Kind of surprised. I think the Tigers were going to be that bad this year, but I knew they were getting older. Some of the young talent was, not bad, but it wasn't enough to hang strong as they felt and tied for the worst record in the league. Surprised it wasn't the Phillies. I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year, or in the middle of the year. I'm sorry. For the American League West, at the beginning of the year, I thought the Mariners were going to come out on top, win division. Astros win the wild card. Then the Rangers, Angels, and Athletics. At midseason, we had the Astros at first place, one of the hottest teams in the baseball. Well, not the hottest team at the time. We had the Angels placing second. Mariners, I predicted them placing third. Rangers fourth, and Athletics fifth. And we finished the Astros, as I said before, won 101 games, went 101-61, and everybody else had losing records, but close to 500. The Angels, I think it was like 70, had 78 wins, I think, 79, can't remember. And the Mariners and Rangers were right around there as well. And then the Athletics, who were behind for a while, kind of caught up a little bit, had 75 wins. So, there was a little bit of life in Oakland, too. We have Chris Davis, of course, we all know. He not the Orioles Chris Davis, the Athletics Chris Davis. Chris the K hit 43 home runs also. So he's been really finding his home since coming over to the Athletics from the Brewers last season. The Mariners pitching was strong, not as good as hoped for, but they got hot late, but wasn't quite enough for them. The Rangers, again, were that team, they're starting to develop a little more younger. But a lot of the better players they had in their hot run the past several years, have moved on or have gotten old, like Adrian Beltre. So they had some good showings in Joey Gallo, who's by hitting 209, still hit in his first full year since he had a partial season in the past 2 seasons, not playing that much. His first full year hitting 41 home runs, driving only 80 in 209, but that's still a solid power bat you can have in your lineup. Nomar Mazara had a good year. Who else they still have in that lineup? But it's a lot of their younger stars got to blossom and play more this year. Rougned Odor, despite the fact he's not an average hitter, he still displays power, but he's not really he's more of a bottom of the order hitter for the lineup. But the Rangers again are starting over again. Their run and one of the stronger teams in baseball is slowed down a little bit, so it wasn't as bad as it was in 2014 year. They haven't had a ton of injuries. But, they'll rebound. They'll get back up there. Jeff Bannister has done a great job as their manager, I thought. And, again, the Athletics, again, there's things to see there. Mariners, again, not strong of the year. Angels, again, they did have Mike Trout injured for most of the first half of the year. He still finished strong, 118 games. He hit 33 homers, drove 70, hit near 300, I believe. So, imagine if he didn't get injured, what the year he could have had. He could have had one of his best seasons if he didn't get hurt. But he still remains one of the best young players in the game. I don't think he's going to win the MVP award. I was still surprised he won it last year. He kind of snuck that right by him. But we'll see what happens there. We have the but again, the Angels, again, just came a little short. They did do some trades acquiring Brandon Phillips and Justin Upton at the end of August, but didn't quite work out. Though they came a little short, and the Astros just ran away with the division. For the National League, we got the National League East division that I thought was going to be the toughest one in the league. Turned out not to be so. The Nationals just ran away the whole time. The whole year I thought they were going to win division. At the beginning of the year, I thought the Mets were going to win a wild card. Then the Marlins placed third, Phillies fourth, Braves fifth. Then midseason, it was the Nationals at first, Marlins second, Mets third, Braves fourth, Phillies fifth finishing, Nationals first, Marlins second, Braves third, Mets fourth, and Phillies last. Nationals, just had a lot more offense on their team. Bryce Harper did miss a good portion of the second half, though, with a knee injury, but he's back, he's healthy, he's ready to go. They still had, they did lose Adam Eaton, the recently acquired center fielder for the year, after he suffered an injury as well at the beginning of the season. So he was a little bit of a loss. But, Trey Turner, the Nationals had to have a little bad luck. Trey Turner also being out for some time with an injury. But he came back, still had a strong first full year in the big leagues. Jason Worth is most likely going to be done with the Nationals after this year because he's in the last year of his 7-year contract. He performed strong as well. David Murphy, Anthony Rendon. Ryan Zimmerman, the comeback story he had. What a year he had. Matt Wieters also was a great addition to add behind the plate. And, of course, their pitching, as always, has been solid. Probably maybe another Cy Young season for Max Scherzer. We'll have to wait and see. But they pitched strong. The Marlins, kind of had a season similar to last year. But instead, I felt like, their pitching wasn't as good, but their offense was shining. Marcell Ozuna had a year. He always got off to a hot start, but he'd always slow down. But this year, he just maintained momentum. He hit like 36 home runs, drove like 120 runs. He had a great year at the bat. Giancarlo Stanton finally had that year I wanted. Hit like about 280, 59 home runs. And I believe like 33 of those, if I'm not mistaken, came in the second half. Because he only had about around like 25 homers to say in the first half. But in the second half, he was just hot. Nobody could stop him. He was scorching. And I was hoping to reach 60. I was hoping he would reach it yesterday, but didn't happen. But, I'm still happy for Stanton. He finally had the year I wanted to. Hopefully we're having more seasons for that to come. Just he has to stay healthy and not getting hurt, as he seems to do a lot. But, the Marlins pitching, it had some besides the good pitching, but, the loss of Jose Fernandez last year through his tragic death didn't quite, was not an easy piece to replace. They still, again, had some good pitching in their team. Not strong enough, though, to get them into the postseason, but they finished near 500. The Braves as well, a veteran team, probably could have been a little bit better, but they did lose what's his face? Yeah, Freddie Freeman did get injured for a good portion of the season. So even though he got off to a hard start, but that was a disappointment for them. They had a lot of veterans on the team. The Ender Inciarte, though, had a good year, though. Their center fielder, Dansby Swanson, didn't have as strong a year as I had hoped for. Matt Adams was a great addition when he came over. Pitching's kind of there, but they placed third this division. The Mets placed fourth. The Mets was a disappointing team. Again, they had the offense. I kept saying they don't have offense. Everybody was either injured, and then Lucas Duda, Jay Bruce, and Curtis Granderson all ended up getting traded. The pitching, a lot of injuries there. Noah Syndergaard tore a lat that kept him out for 3 months of the season, and Matt Harvey hasn't been, ever since he had that Tommy John surgery. He just hasn't been able to be that star pitch that he had the potential to be when he first came to the big leagues. And so with all those injuries and such, the Mets suffered, and Terry Collins, though, has resigned as manager. It's going to be up to the front office, so we'll see who replaces him as manager. But the Mets, after a strong run for the past couple of years, placed fourth this year. I think with only just 70 wins, I think. And the Phillies, despite starting off, I thought there would be a better team this year. Had a better second half. They had a winning record. They went like 37-25 in the second half, I think. So they had a good showing in the second half. A lot of young talent unproduced. That Hoskins, he had like 18 homers in 50 games. They're continuing to get better. Their pitching has always seemed to past year, especially last year, did seem to show some potential. They had got to a very slow start. I thought they were going to be a 100-loss team, but they ended up winning 66 games, I believe. But the future's bright, definitely, for the Phillies also. They placed fifth that division. The National League Central division has my hometown team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. At the beginning of the season, I thought this could be another, close division, which it was, but for a while it was one of the weaker divisions. At the beginning of the season, I predicted the Cubs placing first with about as many wins as they finished with, around like 91, 92 wins. Well, the Cubs finished with 90 wins this year, but they still won the division. I thought the Cardinals were going to get the wild card. The Pirates placed third, Reds fourth, and the Brewers, another surprise team, the Brewers. I thought were going to place fifth and win and lose 100 games. They had a lot of young talent coming in, but no one really, was that experienced yet. And I think Ryan Braun also had an off year as well. So I thought, okay, Brewers probably aren't going to be that strong a team. Well, that was the case because I think the Brewers were actually in first place at the All-Star break, but I was predicting the Cardinals, who were starting to get hot around the All-Star break, to place first. The Cubs would somehow salvage a wild card, at least, and place second. The Brewers, around 504th, will place third. Pirates place fourth, and the Reds place fifth. And I was almost right, except the Cubs ended up, who had a losing record at the All-Star. They were 43 and 45, which, again, I still think part of it is because they didn't have Dexter Fowler and they didn't have a leadoff hitter this year. Some of their guys, their RBI guys, were bad, more higher in the order, which caused them not to drive as many RBIs. Addison Russell have a strong year. Chris Bryant didn't really do as well this past season. He only had 29 homers, drove 71 RBIs, but still had about like 290, but not as good in the power department. Anthony Rizzo, had a standard year for him. Ben Zobrist struggled. Javier Baez, though, I think got better, had a good year. Jason Hayward, though, was not solid as well. I still think he's one of the most overpaid players in the game. But they're able to get hot, and they racked up wins. Still feel they're still kind of vulnerable, though. They're not as immortal as they were last year. But the Cubs did fight back, and they placed first in their division. The Brewers, though, I thought they were going to choke eventually. But the addition of Eric Thames, even though I felt that he's a little overrated, he was a great addition. Domingo Santana had a good year. Hernan Perez, they're pitching. The Brewers put up a pretty solid year and came just a little bit short of, I think, one game short of being the wild cards. They had 86 wins, but they placed second in the division. The Cardinals got a little over 500. They placed third. I keep thinking the Cardinals are going to be a team that they always had the experience to winning into the playoffs, but it wasn't quite enough. It's obvious that they're starting to go a different direction with younger talent, and a lot of their big stars like Yadier Molina, Matt Carpenter, a lot of them are just moving on, and they're not as strong a team as they used to be, but they're still putting up a decent fight. But they placed third. The Pirates, I already said, inconsistent year for them. They placed fourth, and the Reds placed fifth, despite the fact that the Reds had a lot of good hitters this year. And I think, again, if they can get pitching, this could be a pretty tough team in the upcoming years. Joey Votto had a really good year, probably the second best year since his MVP season. Adam Duvall had another good year in the power department. Zach Cozart started the All-Star game. He got injured in the second half, but he still finished strong with a good year. Who else we had? Scott Schebler kind of struggled a little bit in the second half, but he still finished with 30 home runs, so that was a good addition for them. Tucker Barnhart's all behind the play. Again, the Reds didn't get pitching, and a 68-94 team to me could have been a lot better than what they had this year. I could see them being around 500 if they can get the pitching going. So we'll see what happens with the Reds. And then finally, the National League West. This was a very lopsided division, a very surprising good division we had this year. A lot of good players we had. The Dodgers, at the end of the year, I had them placing first, Giants second, Rockies third, Diamondbacks fourth, and Padres fifth. Very lopsided. The standings pretty much stayed the same at how they finished, but I was predicting at mid-season, the Dodgers, who had 61 wins at the All-Star break, had won 30 of their last 34. They did get cold, though, in September. They didn't have a good September look at the Dodgers. They had a loss 11-12 at one point. No, they bounced back a little bit, but I still think they're just a little bit overrated. They finished 104 wins, but I think they're not as good as they turned out to have the season to be. But I had put them placing first. The Rockies, who were in third place at the time, I thought they were going to win the other wild card. The Diamondbacks were going to fall off a little bit. I thought the Giants were going to heat up a little bit and pass up the Padres and place fourth, and the Padres would place fifth, because the Padres has always seemed to be a team to have somebody different every time we play them. But I was wrong about that, as as you know, the Dodgers placed first, the Diamondbacks still placed second and won the first wild card. Last year they went 69-93. This year they went 93-63, and 93-69. I'm sorry. So they had a really impressive year. Their pitching came along with Robbie Ray, Zach Greinke, Patrick Corbin, a couple others. Their bullpen was solid. Their offense had solid hitting with Paul Goldschmidt, David Peralta. Heck, J.D. Martinez, just dingers. J.D. Martinez, 62 games with the Diamondbacks are coming over from the Tigers. He had 29 home runs. 29, and 16 of those came in the month of September. Finishing with a career-high 45. Impressive year by J.D. Martinez. A big reason why the Diamondbacks have been so successful this year, especially in the second half. He was a great acquisition for them from the Tigers at the trade deadline. We then had the Rockies, who, fell off a little bit, but still finished with 87 wins, getting their second wild card. The Padres actually also was a team that played decently better in the second half. They finished with 71 wins, placed in fourth, and the Giants, very disappointing year. A lot of injuries. A lot of players are also starting to get old, too. They placed fifth, tying the Tigers for the worst record in the league with a 64-98 record. I was very surprised that the Giants played that bad this year. But, of course, something like the Pirates couldn't beat them. But, yeah, disappointing year for the Giants. But very lopsided division. And I definitely see one of these three teams, though, going pretty far in the playoffs. Will they win the World Series? We'll find out. As I said, I'm not going to talk about the awards right now, but I will talk about the postseason. So, for the wild card games, at the beginning of the year, I thought it was going to be the Blue Jays and Astros. At midseason, I thought it was going to be the Yankees and Royals, but then it ended up being the Yankees and Twins, despite the fact that, Urban Santana is going to be starting against Luis Severino. I think, the Yankees, it's going to be a good, more so pitching performance. I like Urban Santana, but I think Luis Severino got the better pitching performance than the Yankees, are probably the more experienced team in the playoffs. Despite still being young, they have some veterans on the team that know how to win. I think the Yankees are probably going to overcome the Twins here and end the Twins season. It's been a good year for Minnesota. I'm glad they're getting back into the race, but I think they're going to come up a little short in this wild card game. You think, though, as a lot of people keep saying, if the Yankees lose this game, will they finally decide to put the wild card game as a 2-out-of-3 series because it's a team like the Yankees got screwed because of this? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I'll pick the Yankees to move on. And then for a National League wild card game, Diamondbacks and Rockies. I like both these teams. I've always been like a secret Rocky supporter because of their great bats. Nolan Arenado, Charlie Blackmon set the record for the most RBIs by a leadoff hitter this year. Mark Reynolds had a great year. DJ LeMahieu had another strong year. Their pitching came around too, but I think that for some reason I just feel that the Diamondbacks are going to be that team that, they're not that experienced in the playoffs, but I think they're going to be that surprise team, and I can see them coming around and getting this win here and moving on here. So I'm picking the Diamondbacks over the Rockies. And then we move on to the American League Division Series. Oh, yeah, for the wild cards, I originally thought the beginning of the year was going to be the Cardinals and Mets, and then the Cubs and Rockies at the All-Star break, but it ends up being the Diamondbacks and Rockies. For the American League Division Series, the beginning of the year, I thought it was going to be the Astros, Red Sox, Mariners, and Indians. Midway through, I thought it was going to be the Astros, Yankees, Red Sox, Indians. Well, I was right the second time around because the Mariners didn't make the playoffs, but it's going to be the Yankees taking on the Indians and the Red Sox taking on the Astros. Yankees and Indians, again, Yankees have had a strong young season, but the Indians had a strong showing last year. They're very experienced in the postseason now. They're even better than they were last year. And they have an experienced manager in the playoffs to win World Series and Terry Francona. I think they're going to overcome the Indians in this series, maybe like 3-1 or something like that, move on to the championship series. And as for the Red Sox and Astros, the Red Sox had a good year despite not having Big Papi for the first time. But I think they're not going to quite overcome the Astros' strong staff this year. And I think that the Astros are going to probably win this also 3-1 as well and move on to the American League Championship Series as well for a National League Division Series. Beginning of the year, I thought it was going to be the Cardinals and Cubs and the Nationals and Dodgers. Same teams except flip-flop by rankings. That's going to be the Cubs and Dodgers and Nationals and Cardinals at the All-Star break. But it's going to be, to me, the Diamondbacks going to win the wild card game, taking on their division rivals, the Dodgers, and the Cubs taking on the Nationals. Again, I feel despite the strong season for the Dodgers, I love having Cody Bellinger, Yasiel Puig had a good year, Yasmani Grandal. Their pitching staff is solid, but I still feel the Dodgers are a little bit of an overrated team, and I really think you can see the Diamondbacks being that surprise team in the playoffs. I'm going to pick them beating the Dodgers 3-2. Strong series, but 3-2. They win in Game 5. And move on to the National League Championship Series. And for the other series, it's going to be the Nationals and Cubs. I love the Cubs. They didn't have as good of a year this year, but I still don't see them as vulnerable. I think the Nationals are still that stronger team that just know how to win. They can pitch, they can hit, they can field. I love the Cubs again, but I think they're not as tough to beat as they were last year. I think the Nationals are finally going to overcome them and win the series 3-1 and move on to the National League Championship Series. For the Championship Series, Indians and Astros at the beginning of the year, I thought it was going to be the Red Sox and Indians, and I thought it was going to be Indians and Astros at midway through the year. That's what I'm predicting again. The Indians weren't as strong of a team back then, but with how hot they were, how much better they've gotten, I think the Indians are going to be ready to overcome the Astros, as they'll probably win this series 4-2, I'm predicting, and move on to the World Series, win the American League pennant. And for the National League Championship Series at the beginning of the year, I thought it was going to be the Cubs and Nationals, and it was going to be the Dodgers and Nationals. Now I'm going to think it's going to be the Diamondbacks and the Nationals. I'm going to think the Diamondbacks are going to surpass the Nationals here. Again, I think the Nationals are going to take a step up further, but I think that the Diamondbacks, I can see them being that team again that's just going to surprise us and outdo everybody this year. How the Royals were first year, they were in the playoffs. How the Indians were last year. The Giants, when they first reached the playoffs in 2010. I can see it going. I can see it going that way for the Diamondbacks. I keep saying with how good their pitching is, their great hitting from J.D. Martinez, Paul Goldschmidt. I think is going to have a shot to shine in the postseason. He hasn't really had much postseason experience, but I think he's going to really take that and run with it. So I think I'll take the Diamondbacks over the Nationals 4-2 as well in 6 games. So the World Series, the beginning of the year, I predicted those to be the Nationals and Indians. And then midseason, I thought it was going to be Astros and Nationals. Now I'm going back to the Indians and Diamondbacks. Again, the Diamondbacks are going to be a surprise team, a strong showing, but with the experience they've had the great showing last year, pushing the Cubs to the limit, I'm not saying this because they're now the longest team in drought of a World Series win, but I think the Indians will end their drought as they had the hot season, especially in the second half, winning 22 games in a row, and I think only losing like 3 of the last 4 games out of like 30-some pretty much. I think they're going to come away with the World Series victory here, and I'm going to go with who I predicted at the beginning of the year to be the World Series MVP, Francisco Lindor. It could be Jose Ramirez, it could be somebody else out of the blue, but I really think that not Jose Ramirez, Francisco Lindor is going to be like the guy who's going to be the big difference maker for the Indians this postseason. In the middle of the year, though, I thought it was going to be the Astros and Carlos Correa winning. Correa, however, had an injury that kept him out for most of the second half, but he still had a good year. But I think the Indians, with how well they played in the second half, I think that they're going to have a lot of momentum and their experience in the playoffs. Again, Terry Francona knows how to win the World Series as well. I think the Indians are going to run away and win this 4-1 over the Diamondbacks. And your 2017 World Series champions are predicting the Cleveland Indians with Francisco Lindor as your World Series MVP. So that is it, guys. That is my postseason predictions and my regular season wrap up for the Major League Baseball 2017 season. What are your thoughts on the season and as well as playoffs? Please leave your thoughts down in the comments section below, and please make sure to click that like and subscribe before content comes to this channel. If you're watching Monday Night Raw for you WWE fans, I'll be back up here after Raw reviewing that live, probably around like 11:30, 11:40, somewhere in there. We'll see. But I look forward to reviewing that as well. I'll also just announce, because I'm going to have a little bit of a weird schedule this week with reviewing SmackDown, NXT, and Top 10 topics as well. Again, also, I did my first WrestleMania 1 review. I'll hopefully be doing WrestleMania 2 either tonight or tomorrow. Also, I will probably get that up sometime then soon. And that is it, guys. Again, enjoy the postseason. And with that, guys, I'm checking out. I will see you all in a few hours. Till then, guys, peace.